Branson, it is a pleasure, and it might seem that some of these people do know you.
Anyway, it's very nice to see you all. Do they not give you seats? Do you have me to stand? Anyway, good to see you.
If we can get that microphone back up above your head.
Right, let's try that.
We're going to start off with maybe something potentially embarrassing. I hear you were fired today.
Yeah, I was fired today. It was, I don't understand. I was asked to be a beautiful stewardess on Tony Fernandez's airline. I lost a bet, and whilst I was serving, I had a little slip and some drinks went over his lap.
So Tony Fernandez fired you today as the most beautiful looking stewardess as well.
I thought I was the most beautiful stewardess he'd ever had, but
well, unfortunately, in the day that we live in, there are photographs as well.
There are.
Yeah, so I think we're going to call out the first photograph. Photographs from today. It'd be nice if we could have the photographs up on one of these monitors as well. Is it possible?
I don't think I want to see them actually.
Okay.
Have they come up or not? No. Anyway,
yeah. The audience has reacted. I think they've come up. As I said, I want to try and do something that's a bit different from the usual. And I thought we'd start with something meaty. You've almost died on several occasions. What made you go back for a second time?
Well, I think if you try things in life and you fail the first time, you've got to keep going until you succeed. And I think that applies to being an entrepreneur, trying to set up, trying to make people's lives better by setting up, businesses. Quite often people fall flat on their face, and I think the true entrepreneur is the one that picks themselves up and succeeds the second or the third or the fourth time. In my adventure life, trying to break the transatlantic speed record or trying to be the first across the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. There were moments where things didn't work out, but again, we did go back again the next year, and generally speaking, we succeeded. And you learn from your mistakes.
Right, but you went back again. It would seem you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect a psychiatrist. Maybe I should have seen a psychiatrist rather than going back again. No, they were magnificent adventures. I mean, nobody had managed to get a balloon across the Atlantic. We had to overcome the technical problems to try to build a balloon that could go that far. We had to train ourselves to put up with the difficulties that we would encounter. We had to, try to see if a balloon could fly in the jet stream, and yes, we ended up being picked up by helicopters quite a lot, when things didn't work out. But anyway, in the end, we succeeded.
Yeah, when you were younger, you said that for a lot of things in life, you didn't have much to lose, so it's okay. I'm just wondering now, down the road, has age mellowed you?
Can everybody hear, by the way, before we carry on? Everybody okay? Good. Okay. Yeah, I think when you are young, you are willing to take risks that, strangely, you don't take quite so many of as you get older. Which is strange, because when you're young, you've got a long life to live. But I think the risks I take now are slightly more calculated risks, and I definitely enjoy life so much that I try to make absolutely certain that anything I do, I've protected the downside from as near completely as possible. But we still try to push the limits. I mean, last year, I climbed Mont Blanc with my children. I mean, the difference is my children now have got the same adventurous streak. We kite surfed across the English Channel. We tried to break the transatlantic sailing record. So the nice thing now is we're doing it with the kids. Yeah. And I think, because I'm doing it with the kids, I try to make absolutely certain there's risk of me not bringing the kids home to mum, because I'd be in big trouble. So.
How old are the kids?
They're both in their 20s.
Right.
And, yeah, and as much as their mother would like them to inherit her slightly cautious approach to life, I'm afraid they've inherited mine. But it's wonderful to be able to embark on adventures with them. And we've got the biggest adventure of all coming up later this year, which we're embarking on together. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Now, there are a lot of people in the room here, I think, who are facing challenges in life, and I think your story can be very much an inspiration. You started off your life in school. I mean, you haven't left that life behind you. You have dyslexia, right?
Yeah, I'm dyslexic. I've trained myself out of it to a large extent, but I was hopeless at school. I would look at a blackboard and it was gobbledygook to me, so I just got on doing my own things. And I think a lot of dyslexics can be exceptionally good at some things, and they can leave the rest behind as best they can. And so one good thing about dyslexia, it taught me the importance of delegation. So I find wonderful people around me, and I leave them to do the things I'm not good at.
Right.
And I think that should apply not just to dyslexics, but anybody setting up a business or running a department. They need to find somebody as good or better than them to do the day-to-day running, so they can think about the big picture. And it's enabled me to expand Virgin into lots and lots of different areas, which I couldn't have done if I tried to do everything myself.
Well, do I understand that if you had a choice now, you would still keep it? Because it seems to have gotten you...
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, if I wasn't dyslexic, I wouldn't have left school at 15. So, so that was a big positive in my life. And, I got my education by being out in the jungle, in the real world, learning to survive. And that's not necessarily right for everybody, but for people who want to be entrepreneurs, I think you learn the most actually, physically doing things and trying things and failing at things and succeeding at things and just learning all the nuts and bolts by trying to create something which is going to make a real difference to other people's lives. And it's a very difficult thing to teach teach at schools or teach at colleges. I mean, the main advantage of going to college is you have an insurance policy in case your entrepreneurism doesn't work out, and therefore you can get a job based on your university education. But back in Great Britain, we managed to persuade the British government to, instead of just doing student grants, to do entrepreneurial grants, so that if a young person aged 18 has got a business idea, the government will then give them a grant to help them get their idea going, just like they would get a student grant. And I think that's something which should be duplicated around the world, because getting that little bit of initial money to start your business can make or break a business.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 15, I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money, and I wanted to start a magazine, and I needed money to sell the advertising from the school phone box. And I was lucky. My mother found a necklace in the street, and she handed it into the police station. And then 3 months later, the police handed it back, because nobody had claimed it, and she sold it. And it was those $200 that were critical in getting our business going. And so sometimes incredibly small amounts of money can actually enable people to get businesses going that one day become big businesses employing a lot of people.
Yeah. Now, one of the other challenges that I know you face, besides dyslexia, and it's something that no one in this room, I think, believes when they see you and what you do day to day, you were shy.
Yeah, see, nobody believes it.
But what happened?
Especially after seeing those photographs earlier.
Yeah, it seems to me like you've learned something. It's like you took on a second language. You're very good at that.
I think what I learned was, there is no point in creating something which you're proud of unless people know about it. And it is a lot cheaper to use yourself to put something on the map than it is to spend money on advertising. And so from a relatively young age, I used every advantage I had to try to, I mean, for instance, we had a magazine, and it was a national magazine for young people. Now, we didn't have any money to, a lot of money, so, I would do a deal with the biggest newspaper and say, look, I'm sending a 16-year-old journalist to Vietnam to cover the war there. Why don't you do a big article on a 16-year-old being a journalist in Vietnam? And we'll then, have a 16-year-old in Vietnam that we can use for our magazine. So over the years, I think we just learned the art of survival and learned how to do things, in a cost-effective way. And I've obviously used myself to be the face of Virgin.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun doing it.
I'd say you did more than survive, you thrived.
Yeah, I think there is a thin dividing line between success and failure. I've fortunately managed only just. I mean, in my book Lose My Virginity, I talked about how close we came to not surviving, both business and personally, but building a business from scratch without financial backing is difficult. And fortunately, we managed to stay the right side of that dividing line. And as the Virgin brand has grown, as it's got global respect, it's meant that every time we take on another industry and try to shake it up, we've got people will give the Virgin brand a try. They respect it, they trust it. The brand is all you've got in life is your reputation. The brand has a strong reputation of trust, and that's helped us build an international company.
Yeah. How much do you attribute your scraping through the massive success? How much do you attribute that to luck?
I think luck plays quite a big part in any successful individual's life. Almost whatever they do. But you've obviously got to work enormously hard to make that luck. But there is a lot of people who work just as hard as I work, who haven't had that same success. And I think that anybody in this room who achieves great success must realize that we're not, as entrepreneurs or as business people, we're not more successful than a successful nurse, a successful journalist, a successful doctor. But extreme wealth comes with that success, and therefore extreme responsibility comes with that success as well. And I think what we need to do is get every business person in this world to realize that with that success and with that responsibility, we've got to address the world's problems as much as don't just leave it to the politicians, don't just leave it to the social workers, but let's get out and solve the world's problems. And I think if every business